Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So I have got a whole load of Alghabra Parfums samples in front of me. So when I recently went to Istanbul, I had this idea to visit certain tourist spots in Istanbul, which have inspired these fragrances by Alghabra Parfums. So Alghabra Parfums is a Turkish brand, and they have like two collections. One is based on Istanbul, and the other one is based on Damascus. So these seven fragrances are inspired by specific places, specific spots in Istanbul. I had this amazing idea of visiting each one of those spots, and observing like if being there or the feeling of being there or what I can smell in that particular location kind of matches what's in these fragrances. Now, the only place I managed to actually do that is at the Grand Bazaar. That is the only place where I managed to get a video and actually observe the area and see how it made me feel, what I could smell, and if it matched the scent. So because that was the only place where I was successful in doing that, I'm going to tell you about the Labyrinth of Spices fragrances by Alghabra Parfums first, which is inspired by the Grand Bazaar in Turkey. So this fragrance isn't overly spicy, but it's definitely bold with tobacco, Turkish coffee. There's also spices in there, and it also has tonka to control and smoothen out those powerful notes. And it also has some pineapple in the opening to give it a twist. So now, how did we feel when we were actually at the Grand Bazaar? So at the Grand Bazaar, it's like very difficult to explain, but it has like this antique smell to it. It's full of loads of things. There's like traditional Turkish items as well. There's Turkish delight. There's coffee spots as well. There's loads of like rugs, jewelry. There's all sorts of things that they sell in the Grand Bazaar. It's very diverse. Now, I do believe before they used to sell spices in the Grand Bazaar as well. But when I visited, actually, they've got this area just next to the Grand Bazaar called the Spice Bazaar, and that's where they now sell the spices. And therefore, you won't really find any spices in the Grand Bazaar itself. However, there was a smell of spices in the background somewhere. And as I said, it had that very antique feel to it because of all the rugs and everything. And there's just so much there. It felt very traditional to me. Now, in Istanbul, everybody smokes. I would say like 90% of the people in Istanbul smoke. So you have the smell of tobacco everywhere you go. And that definitely comes across in this fragrance. As I said, the tonka in this kind of controls that strong note. And then you've also got Turkish coffee as well in this fragrance. And definitely you get the feel of Turkish coffee in the Grand Bazaar because there's so many coffee shops as well. And it's just it's a very traditional feeling, I would say. Like it represents a market that sells all sorts of things. And it definitely comes across in this fragrance. That I would say was a success. I definitely think Labyrinth of Spices represents the Grand Bazaar, and when you are there, you can definitely relate to this fragrance. And that is the only one that we were actually successful with. Why is that? Because I went to Istanbul to relax. There was no intention to like vlog completely or like spend too much time vlogging or finding fragrances and stuff like that. I actually went to Istanbul to relax, to get a break. So these were the other three fragrances and the locations that I was supposed to visit, and one of them I definitely regret not going to now. So this one is Istanbul Sol. This one is inspired by the Bosphorus, which is the long river that basically breaks up the Asian side from the European side. So it's a really long river, which has a really beautiful bridge on top. I don't know if they have it in, yeah. So I don't know if you can see in the picture, but that's basically the bridge that many of you have probably seen associated with Istanbul. It's really beautiful, and it basically connects the two sides of Istanbul. So Istanbul Sol is a pretty strong fragrance. It opens with pink pepper, spices, and incense, and that pink pepper definitely gives the scent a bright spark. The combination is really nice, but you do need to let it settle because it is quite strong. It then brings in the patchouli with some cypriol and woodiness. And to me, it feels like a very sophisticated, spicy, woody scent. So how do I feel if this... I mean, I did go past the Bosphorus technically because I did go over to the Asian side. So how do I feel about this fragrance and the Bosphorus river? The freshness from this fragrance, I think, kind of represents the actual river, the breeze that you get once you're there. And then you have spices and incense as well in this fragrance, which I think is just a common scent, natural scent across Istanbul. Then the next one we have got is Eyes of Seven Hills. So this one is inspired by Galata Tower, which is over here. And I did go past Galata Tower. It was up a hill though, and I just couldn't be bothered to walk up the hill to get to it. So I thought, okay, never mind. Eye of Seven Hills has like a sweet boozy opening with light spicy hints. Again, as I said to you, I feel like spices is like a common natural smell across Istanbul. That's probably why it's in quite a few of these fragrances. But that being said, this is quite different to the others. Like my daughter says that this smells like cherries. This also has vanilla, patchouli, and tobacco. And I feel like that cherry smell that my daughter is getting is because near the Galata Tower, you've got like loads of bakeries, loads of coffee shops that sell really nice and attractive looking cakes. I didn't actually go that close, but where I was, there was like loads of restaurants, loads of coffee shops, and I think that's where that cherry-like smell kind of comes from, and also that vanilla. And then this is the last place that we were supposed to visit, and I absolutely regret not going to this place. This is Ottoman Treasure. Sorry, this is Ottoman Treasure, and this is inspired by Topkapi Palace. Now, Topkapi Palace is a traditional palace, which is the opposite of Dolmabahce Palace, because Dolmabahce Palace is more like a modern grand palace. Topkapi Palace is a traditional palace, a traditional building, and it actually houses some artifacts related to Islamic history. And I really regret not going to visit that because that would have been really interesting. And also, Topkapi Palace has like beautiful, beautiful garden with beautiful flowers. Yeah, I really do regret not going. Maybe next time when we go to Istanbul, this will definitely be on the top of my list to visit. So Topkapi Palace was made for the Sultan at that time, which is like, I think in the 1400s, which is an incredible age for this palace to still be there. So as time went by, the sultans that came later on preferred to live in their own palaces along the Bosphorus. So then eventually the Turkish government declared Topkapi Palace as a museum, and that's what it is to date. So that's where you can actually go and visit. This fragrance has a very elegant opening with white oud, patchouli, and pink berries. It's also a little bit balsamic. So imagine standing in the regal halls of the palace, and there is this beautiful aroma that engulfs the palace. And I'm not surprised that this has white oud in it because it kind of links it back to history. So as I said, I didn't actually go to Topkapi Palace. I had made a huge mistake. But definitely next time I visit Istanbul, I will visit the palace and tell you what this smells like and if I get that feeling when I'm there. But after doing some research on it, I can definitely see a connection between the fragrance and the palace. Now, the other three fragrances in the collection, which are inspired by places in Istanbul, are these three fragrances, which are Crown of Marmara, Ancient Fortress, and Bosphorus Pearl. Now, these three I hadn't planned on visiting anyway, so I'm just going to tell you about what the fragrances smell like, because some of them, well, two of them were quite far out, and one of them I had to do like a cruise or boat tour to actually visit. And I didn't have time for that. And as I said, I didn't want to put pressure on me or my family to do everything. We just wanted to relax. So I'm just going to tell you very briefly about these three fragrances and what they smell like, just because this video is covering Alghabra Parfums Istanbul collection. So we are going to start off with a Crown of Marmara. The Crown of Marmara is inspired by the Prince's Island. It is a little bit far out though. I'm going to show you what the picture looks like. By the way, the Alghabra discovery set does not come like this anymore. So before they used to do a discovery set like this, where inside each sample you would actually see an image of what the fragrance was inspired by. Now I think it just comes in like a normal discovery set with just the samples inside. So yeah. Back to Crown of Marmara. This one was inspired by the Prince's Island. This one is like a balsamic leather, lightly spicy and resinous scent. This also has some ambergris in it as well, and some sandalwood, and is slightly more complex and bold than the other fragrances. Maybe next time, as I said, if we visit Istanbul, then this will be a place that we can visit and see if what we get from the fragrance kind of matches the feeling of being on the Princess Island. Then the next one we have got is Bosphorus Pearl. So this one is probably the most liked out of the whole collection. This one was inspired by the Maiden's Tower, which is this one, and this is the one where you have to do the boat tour, I think it is, to actually visit you don't visit the Maiden's Tower because you don't actually get off there, but you go past it. So this one is like a delicate floral scent, yet fresh at the same time. And it would be fresh because it's right in the middle of the Bosphorus. It has a fresh opening, and then you've also got some violet, some rose, some ylang ylang. It's quite floral, but beautifully done. It also has jasmine tea, giving that calming effect, and some woody notes, and some musk. So overall, this is like a fresh floral fragrance, very free-flowing. So that is Bosphorus Pearl, one of my favorites from the entire Alghabra collection, actually, and I think probably one of the most liked as well by a lot of people. And then the last one we have is Ancient Fortress. So this one is inspired by Rumeli Hisari, which is a fortress basically, and it's a little bit out of the main Istanbul city. So this fortress was built during the Ottoman Empire, and it opens quite fresh and green with some apple and neroli. It also has hints of spices and juniper berry. You then start to get some aquatic notes along with that as well. This fortress will obviously be by the river. I think it is right next to the Bosphorus. So again, I can see that fresh aspect, how it relates to the fragrance. But again, maybe next time we're in Istanbul, we can visit this fortress and match the scent to the feeling of actually being there. I'll show you what the picture looks like. That's what the picture fortress looks like, and it's actually really, really beautiful. We actually visited a fortress in Kuşadası when we went 2 years ago, and that was really beautiful as well. I think Turkey has such incredible history, and the fact that they've got the ancient buildings, the way they've maintained it is just incredible. So that is my overview of Alghabra Parfums Istanbul collection. It didn't go how I had imagined it to be, but we did try, and I hope you still found this video useful. You've learned something new. You've learned about Alghabra Parfums. Of course, if you have any questions, you can always let me know in the comments box below. Otherwise, I will see you guys in my next video.